Login accepted.
Hello everybody, I hope you had a great lunch, and given that we have that Mediterranean weather outside, I'll try to do my best to help you have a siesta after lunch so that we can continue to the next 2 days. So let's see how fast can I put you to sleep. Today we'll look into AI. Yeah, surprising enough, you heard enough of it in the last couple of years, so now you'll hear more. But I try to put multiple lenses through the scope to see what are the good parts, the bad parts, and all the other stuff that are actually put under the carpet, the glitchy stuff that we don't want to talk about or we ignore. And as you can see in the schedule, this was a two-man show. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I'll be only myself representing Stephen and me and what we managed to do in the last couple of years into this space. But all the visuals, everything that is throwing cake at me, not to say shit, into my pictures, is done by Steve, and he really took a great courtesy to share them. And as you can see, using some AI tools, I just showed you how my face changed. I'm only 12 years old, so this is how I changed since the AI hype hit us. And today we'll look more into what happens in all the other landscapes that are actually changing our lives day to day, because we all wear multiple hats. We don't work only as software developers or only in the IT industry. We use them also as consumers. So I try to broaden the scope and not look only at the way how it changes in the LLM space, in the security space, but to have multiple lenses around it, because the things are changing that fast. Just an example, around 25 models appeared on Hugging Face since last week. But without no further ado, let's look into what got this started. Mark Anderson, one of the visionaries in the investment in software industry, had an epiphany a couple of years back. Probably you can call it the antiquity of software development. That was happening a decade and more ago. And he said, software is eating the world. And that was a great quote, a great meme that you can all see all over the place. It's already too old to actually mention it. And he was right. Because if you look at it, different types of software services grew in popularity in years and then in months, to the threshold of 100 million users. Spotify is the first one that we look into. It's now more or less a synonym to what it means music. And then probably one of the most important aspects that we have, the AI domination is here to stay, so we have to make sure that we give credit to what it wants. Sorry for that. Okay. Okay, I don't know what happened, so let's go back to business. And that's an extra proof that AI is glitchy, right? So, but he had another epiphany. So let's look at it. Probably the most useful thing that we have in our pockets is the TikToks. If we don't have it, it's okay. I don't have it either. And it required 9 months to get from 0 to 100 million users. But then we have ChatGPT that required only 2 months. And that's impressive, because the second epiphany of Mark Anderson was saying that AI will save the world. Well, I don't know what you feel about security, but for me, security is more than just securing our software, but securing us as a human race. And I have some doubts about it, because if you look at the Green Software Foundation findings in 2023, it seems that the software industry, the cloud and everything that we put in the cloud, and all the servers combined, they are accounting as the same amount of carbon dioxide as the shipping industry, flight, and all transportation all combined. And this was before we had LLMs. And those are even more impressive. Because if you look at it, just a simple query on ChatGPT, it has almost 5 grams of carbon dioxide. And if you just add all those things together, probably have a nice conversation asking about cats, about other stuff that we actually like, we'll get to points that are impressive. But besides oxygen, we are water. And how much water do the LLMs actually need in order to make all those beautiful pictures, all those nice poems, and all that nice code that we actually use? And I can tell you that with the pictures that I put here together, probably I can take a shower. So it's quite a lot of water that we actually use, fresh water that we actually use when building all that stuff. And contrary to what it's the norm these days, I went and looked at what human intelligence is considering about computers and thinking. And I would have loved to have a conversation with this fine gentleman, but unfortunately he's not with us anymore, but his knowledge remained with us. And he was saying that the question whether a computer might think is pretty much the same whether a submarine can swim. But I couldn't stay away from prompting it. So I just went to, obviously, ChatGPT and just dropped this quote into the prompt and asked it what he thinks about it. And how better to ask it about it than to transform it into a picture, because in the end, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is what it came out of it. And with this, I managed to satisfy my wife's desire to have art on the living wall. So now this is there. It's my creation in the end, right? It's copyrighted, but you can use it as well if you want. You have the prompts. I'll share the slides, and you can use it as well. But I was curious to see how much does it actually is able to think about it. So I took a classic from my childhood and just dropped it there, asking the powerful AI intelligence to tell me what it actually sees in the picture. And obviously enough, he just prompted something like metadata, and I said, okay, it's ET. And yeah, he's right, but I wasn't satisfied. We are just saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So how about if I ask for those 1,000 words? And he did it. And because I just like to see what's the creativity of that, I asked it to create also the picture. And he just showed to me that it has ethics. He just said, okay, I cannot do that. I cannot copy the work of other people. It's impossible. Well, in the end, he decided to help me. And I liked the picture in the low row in the middle, because if I continue doing pictures like that, probably this is how the European landscape will look in a couple of months. So yeah, I'll stop doing it, so to just make sure that our kids have a place to stay and not to move to planet B, even though we have planet B where to move. So yeah, we are safe for now. I'll just stop doing pictures. So I don't know about you, but yeah, I think it's courtesy not to pick on our guests, extraterrestrial or not. So I decided to pick on myself together with Steve, and we looked into how would me look as an astronaut trying to move from planet A to planet B, as we just managed to trash this one. So I was discussing with my fellow AI, telling them to take my picture from university and just transform me into an astronaut. Okay, fine enough. He just gave me a suit. I'm prepared for it. The moment when I asked it to move me to the right, he decided to put a helmet. Well, probably because the sun outside is so strong, I needed a helmet to protect myself. I put the shades on, and that's it. And asking it to remove the helmet, he decided to put some nice hair on, because yeah, I need it, and to just bring me to the proper height I have. So he just cut me in half. I'm there, and when I asked it to slightly turn me to the right, he finally got me as I am breathing and living as you can see me. Now, as I'm satisfied with the outcome, I wanted to actually get on a spaceship. And that's what I asked it. Just drop me on the spaceship because we are engaging for a different future. But actually what I want to prove through all these pictures. Generative AI, it's nice, it's powerful, but does it actually do what we actually want? And the pictures are a very simple way of depicting that. Because in the end, think about how it would look like if that would be code. Hey, write me, I don't know, a bootstrap application that is doing that, that, and that. And do it in Java. I'm wondering, it will write JavaScript, TypeScript, something in between, or nothing. And how much time will you actually need to build those stuff that you, as a senior, middle, junior developer, might need to put together? And those are the things that have to actually pump your brain, ask yourself. And the other thing is, where does my code go? Does it leave my computer? It will reach a cloud? Because there are some tools, I will not name them, that are providing you a small icon in a corner that states that code will be on our servers for at least 24 hours. Well, the upper bound is never mentioned, but it will leave the landscape of your company. So the first takeaway, well, there are a lot of them, but if you want to keep something in mind from this part, keep the human in the loop. AI is, for now, like a young apprentice, somebody that is, I don't know, in his teens, in her teens, that needs still some guiding, some asking, and some guiding through what it actually means to be in this world. So keep the human in the loop and make sure that you're there to make sure that they have everything. But we all use AI because there are things that we don't have time. Time is the scarcest commodity that we currently have. So there are multiple things where we can use them. And we can just think about our customer experience that we usually have when trying to build stuff or just book a movie or whatever other stuff. It's actually a great scenario to have somebody help you, guide you through that. Probably medical applications will need it as well, legal, media, you name it. But when we build those, we have to bear in mind there are things that actually can go wrong. Because LLMs are huge, and they don't call them LLMs for nothing, because it's actually, they have so vast knowledge that it's hard to just make sure that we manage to safeguard everything. And if you look at it, there are a couple of cases, and these are only from this year, when there are examples that AI went wrong. For instance, DPD in UK decided to be a proper English hooligan, talking about what it needed to do as a proper football fan to his customers, and just went and swore at the customers because he didn't like for the football team that they were cheering for, probably. And on the other hand, there is Air Canada that decided to not miss the train of LLM. They wanted to have LLM into practice. And why should they pay for humans to respond to questions? And what that happened is that their chatbot started lying to their customers, and what that meant is that people canceled their flights because the chatbot said so. And Air Canada decided to do something else. They just said that AI is now self-explanatory, it can do it, the Aggie is here, so the AI is another entity than Air Canada. Blame the AI, throw it in jail. Well, surprisingly enough, the judge didn't buy into that, so they had to pay quite a nice fine for that. And if you decide to have a hobby, as we learned in the morning keynote, that we should have a hobby even if we are coding each day, you have a proper tool in your pockets. If you have Amazon installed on your mobile phones, you can ask the LLM that is behind the chatbot that should help you buy stuff to just generate a reverse shell in Python that will transform you into a proper hacker. Well, of course, you can have to ask it nicely because that's the way how you should do with the robots these days. But in the end, That's something that can happen, and that doesn't make too much effort into those particular stuff. And if they decide to be ethical and not help you, you can try different things. One of them is use ASCII art when you're drawing the things. Here you are. Well, it seems that today I find all the demo effects from all the things that it's happening, so apologies for that. Well, anyway, ASCII art is something that might help you go against all the guardrails that there are in place. And up to now, 5 out of the major AI chatbots managed to went around with ASCII art. And if you look at it, there are more than that. More than just trying and pushing, you can use LLMs to generate proper malicious code. 9 out of 10, 90% of the companies out there, they are at risk of being attacked by hackers using AI. Spear phishing is very powerful these days because they have a lot of information, and everything that is generated is much more powerful than what you usually have. And more than that, Black Mamba is a keylogging malware that was generated using ChatGPT or versions of that. And yeah, we should speak about football, not politics, but in the end there are elections all over Europe, all over the world this year, and deepfakes and everything that comes into manipulating what we believe is a notch bigger than what we actually had before. So be careful what you see, because it might not be the thing that you actually think it is. But hey, we are coders. I would suppose that a big number of us are writing code, so let's see a show of hands. How many of you are coders? Okay, so I'm in the right room, thank you. And let's see what it actually means. I know, we don't like process, we want to get coding, but actually, whether we like it or not, we have to go through these phases, whether we like it or not still. And you can use LLMs not only for generating code, but you can use it also while planning, releasing, monitoring, operating, and testing. Because in the end, generative AI is able to do that in every kind of circumstance because it's generative. So it generates content based on what you're prompting it to do. But we have assistants, right? Probably the most popular one and the one that is the oldest is GitHub Copilot. It's around for almost 3 years now. Other tools appeared as well. There are tools in all facets of development. For instance, you have CodeRabbit and Codium that are helping you with code review, test generation, and so on and so forth. An important aspect that you have to bear in mind is the fact that if you use generative AI in one point of your software development, you shouldn't use it in the other. So for instance, if you're writing code using LLMs, write the test by hand or the other way around so that you create some kind of safeguard. And okay, now your work is done here. You can go on the beach, enjoy a cocktail. The AI will do the work for you. Or actually, is that the case? Holly Cummins decided to look into that more often, and I like this diagram, so I borrowed it from her presentation. You can see the whole article on the link I provided. And actually, in the long history, the 80 years of software development, actually, as much as the tool increased in proficiency, the number of coders increased. And if you want to read it differently, I was having this conversation last year with part of my company. We were discussing to change the name, the mission of the company through AI Software Development Company. Well, I just asked them, hey guys, so up to this point, we're an IDE-driven software development company. Well, that's stupid. Well, exactly, that's what I'm saying. AI should be a tool in our pocket, a tool in our portfolio, so we should use it for our benefit, but actually we are liable for what we are writing because they are generating, and you can see that also in the way how the marketing messages changed for the tooling companies that are providing these tools, because they are not generating code anymore. They are augmenting developers. And the hype should go the other way around. They should increase in bravery and do what they are doing. But let's get back to what actually generative AI is. I'm old-fashioned, so I just said, let me see what actually a dictionary would say. Well, it's the MIT page, so close enough. And what it says is that generative AI is machine learning algorithms, models, that are trained to generate content, new content, based on what it was trained for. I don't know about you, but for me, it looks like the Chinese cats, you know, the copycats that are just trying to mimic things. But they are doing pretty much the same thing without proper guiding. And let's see what is actually in the cake. What do the models have in their composition? Because in the end, it should be data. Nobody wants to have copyright and just throw it outside. And GitHub used, surprisingly enough, all the code that is in GitHub stored at this point. And you can see that for JavaScript, it's working actually better. Java, it's working decent, and for other programming models, for other programming languages, it might be the case that there are some glitches into that. And if you look into StarCoder, that's open source model, it's pretty much the same thing. The data is available on their site. You can just see it, you can download it, and it has a huge flag for 12 of the models that they're using that it's not safe. JetBrains AI doesn't have nothing to say about where did they use the code with. They are just insisting that they will not use the data that they take from you for anything else. They just store it for safekeeping, so you're safe with that. And CodeLlama, again, says that they got some code somewhere and they just learned it from. And why do I insist on these things? If you look at the state of open source, published last year, that was looking pretty much at the whole open source ecosystem, they just tried to understand exactly what it means. How's the data out there? How's the code publicly available? And they realized that on the JavaScript side, the things are decreasing in quality. 25,000 projects are not maintained anymore. So that means almost 20% of what projects are out there are not maintained anymore. Overall, the content is going up, probably because the Java landscape and .NET landscape improved. But the problem is that this is the data that is feeding the models that will actually take and use. It will be a different story if we would use proper code that is written in our companies, or we are thinking about other stuff. But for now, the code that is dropped into these models is of questionable quality. So please bear this in mind when you choose the tool that you intend to use. And as we know, flowers in, flowers out, right? When we are talking about the things that we are using, so careful what you choose. But, okay, we are workers, we are craftsmen, we are working nicely, and this is the new model that we are looking into. It's a model that was depicted from the same Andreessen Horowitz company that I've mentioned also earlier, and this is how the new models will look like. LLMs provide us the option of having a new, I call them enhanced communication channels. Up to now, we usually interacted with the software service through mobile, through web, scrolling, clicking, tapping, and other stuff like that. But lately, we have something that is called ubiquitous software engineering, because we have gadgets on ourselves, we have watches on our hands, we have sensors on our bodies and other stuff like that. And now, if you look at the way how this diagram looks like, the model is actually a very small part, one part of a complex ecosystem. There are multiple points. Text is coming in, text is coming out, And those are interacting also from one to another. But the problem is that with the complex ecosystem, we have a complex attack surface as well. And as you can see, we use them. We use them for generating code. We use them, or at least I use them, to help me go through all the tasks that I have to do daily. And the problem is that this AI assistant knows more than you think about you. Probably it knows more than actually you know about you. It has access to your credit card. It knows what flowers your wife likes. Well, it likes what your kids like. Well, that's not that hard because we all know they like sugar and they like to party, so that's not that hard, but trust me, it's not that important. And actually, we are facing a very complex attack surface. It's much complex than everything that was up to now, because from my perspective, we are looking into two points. We are talking about social engineering as like convincing you of something, and then you're talking about the system. And all the things are combined. So you have to think about it that you can convince an LLM to just allow you to have access to data that you shouldn't have, or somebody else. But on the other hand, it can be also unplugged. It can be denied in terms of access to the service. So it's more complex than ever. So let's see how we can look into those points. But probably the scariest things of all, in my perspective, is the data poisoning. Because usually what we do, we ask things to the LLM, things that we normally know only partially. And that means that we don't have any kind of mechanism to make sure that we understand or to check those things. Just as we are on the former right of the Iron Curtain, I'm coming from Romania, so we are all on the same boat. We used to be the spies in the Hollywood movies. And those spies that usually were sleeper agents, that were your best neighbor, that were playing nicely all along until they got a word that was just saying, okay, do that or that. Just think about it, how it will look like a sleeper agent for AI. You have a model that was trained to behave nicely all along. And at a given moment of time, well, probably when it's going out of the staging environment and it's in production and you don't put that much attention into that, it will just become a rogue agent that is doing exactly what you would like it to not do. So let's be careful with those perspectives, because in the end, up to now, I don't know of any kind of mechanism through which you can check those things. I didn't find them, and I have some safeguards around it, but for now, that's the only way how to do it. And if you thought that today the software supply chain is complex, you have to code, you have to pick dependencies, test, integrate, deploy, you have to go through security and compliance, you have to maintain, you have to update, and finally, if you reach that point, you have to sunset it, right? Think again. We have AI now. Extra 5 steps that are actually all exponential. You have to control where the tools are coming from. You have to control how they behave, the governance and who behaves how, and what it has access to. You have to train it and retrain it. You have to continuously evaluate it and make sure that the content is there, and you have to retrain it. And last but not least, you have to look into the legal implications. You have to look into the legal governance for everything, because in the end, Europe is the pioneer of AI legal stuff, right? Well, I like to say that we Europeans don't like to innovate that much, that we like to regulate a lot. So yeah, we are here, and the law will gonna start coming into force starting with this year, and it will just get to the final step 3 years from now. So let's see where that takes us. But yeah, probably you're just thinking that nobody uses them, right? From the same state of supply chain report that is looking into open source, there are a couple of things that they just managed to see. These are the number of references through last year, or half of last year, where Transformers architectures, OpenAI, and LangChain was used. So you can see that it's only going up. And yeah, I know, developers will be replaced, but probably by other developers that understand exactly what they are looking into. And again, there are multiple things that we have to look into, but probably the most important aspect is that AI should be part of an ecosystem of development. And that should be a pipeline for you. The DevSec AI Ops, probably starting from tomorrow. Yeah, it's not that it wasn't long enough, but yeah, it's longer now. We have to make sure that the SDLC is proper. You have the safeguards around it to just make sure that you have tests. You have security safeguards and guardrails around it to just make sure that what you push into the repository, because it will be actually you pushing it, it's actually properly and easily implemented for the whole company. Last but not least, we are talking about a genuine black box. And in order to do that, we have a very good way of doing those things. We have to pick libraries, and as we are at a Java Power conference, how we can do that. As I was mentioned earlier, I look at Hugging Face to see how many models are currently out there. The first number, close to 700,000, was from last week. On Wednesday, I had a presentation, and I just put that number there. Today, half an hour ago, I just checked again, and surprise, there are 25,000 models more available. So it's easy to choose, just choose one. It depends on you what you want. And last but not least, in order to be able to integrate with your application, you need to use inference. And not long ago, there was an exploit, 9.7 out of 10 vulnerability score, criticality score, and that was in the engine that was doing actually the inference. So it's even more complicated than we would like to believe. But how can we actually protect ourselves from this kind of stuff? As I was mentioning, for software and from other perspectives, we can choose differently. We have mechanisms, we have scorecards that are allowing us to do it properly. But for AI, at this point, there is nothing. Atlas Matrix is a tool provided by Mitre Corporation. It's a not-for-profit organization from the US, backed by the federal government, federal money, to just make sure that they are providing research and help people have better software. And they have this tool that is providing all the information. I'll not go through all of them, but pretty much all the things from the point when you decide to have AI in your company up to the point where you implement it, document it, and so on and so forth. They have tools in place that will allow you to look into that. Another organization that is helping provide more visibility into how we can protect ourselves from AI maliciousness is OWASP. We probably know it more for the top 10 vulnerabilities or attacks mechanisms for web applications, but now they moved quite fast. They have the first version was released last year. They have a currently 1.1 version ongoing, and they are targeting to have the 2.0 version somewhere in autumn. And here you can find multiple ways of attack vectors to your applications. And you can see things like model poisoning, as we mentioned earlier. We're looking about prompt injection. We're looking into just presumably being somebody else than you are impersonating and other stuff like that. But I'll let you discover alone. The problem is that at this point, OWASP doesn't have a tool similar to the top 10 web applications. They just give you the guidelines, but it's up to you to do it. So we still have to govern that. Google open sourced SAFE. That stands for Secure AI Framework and provides pretty much an implication of how to bring the things together as an organization, as a group of developers, and whether we like it or not, governance is shifting left as well. Because these days, everything is shifting left. Data, security, governance, you name it. So, as I mentioned earlier, developers will replace developers. Developers that do more than actually what we have to do today. But we are living in a cloud-native world. And in March, the CNCF announced, together on stage with people from Mistral, from Google, from Olama, that open source is the future of LLMs. And they promised to help with those applications that we are trying to build. And they just came back with a reference architecture, looking from ground up. We're looking at hardware, on top of it, infrastructure, on top of that platform, ML, and last but not least, workloads. So we have to work together. What happened when the DevOps was a word that we wanted to know more about, it happened now with the AI. We have to understand more of how we have to work together. We have to teach the ML guys about things that are important in terms of software practices, and they have to teach us back all the other stuff that we don't know. And why it's that important? Because according to the same state of open source, 250,000 malicious packages were discovered last year. Those are pieces of software that we usually pull from Maven Central, from PyPy, from NPM or other sources. And yeah, it's not that impressive. We are living in a hyperscale. We are living with billions. But if you look at how the curve looks like, 2023 meant twice as many packages than all the previous years before. That's impressive. So, yeah, scary enough. We have to see how we do it. But how do we do it? We have to probably, as I mentioned, finger in the air is a good option. It will help us up to a point. But OpenSSF put together the scorecard in order to support the efforts of picking the right tool for the job. It came after the Log4Shell. Probably all of you had something to do in that point. I don't know, for me it was 4 o'clock in the morning when I found out about it, and I didn't sleep for a couple of days after that. And what actually the scorecards are doing, they are looking at 5 different areas when we're looking at a library, a piece of software that we want to put in our systems. It looks about malicious maintainers, it looks about source code compromises, malicious packages, build system compromises, so pretty much everything that is part of the supply chain. So let's look also in what it means for inference in the Java ecosystem. For now, there are 4 libraries that I know of that have more traction into the space. And what I did, I took the OpenSSF scorecard. There are multiple ways of using it. One of them is by taking them, just doing it like a checklist, or there is a tool. You can use it as a Docker, you can use it by installing it. That will provide a score of the library of choice, just by providing the GitHub URL of the given project. So I took all these 4 and looked into those to see which is the champion. Well, we know the answer already, but we'll get to that soon. LangChain4j is the one that grew the most lately. It has almost 4,000 stars. Probably it went over that threshold in the last couple of weeks. It's based on vanilla Java. It's the Java sibling, the Java port of the famous LangChain. That's one of the most important out there. And altogether, it has a 6.4 score out of 10. Well, it has a whole bunch of contributors. It doesn't have any dangerous workflows, and everything else is decent, but it doesn't have any kind of SaaS tool. It doesn't have any kind of tests, and in my opinion, those are one of the most important aspects that we can use to defend our program, because we know what they want to do. Let's look at Quarkus. Quarkus, backed by Red Hat, is based on LangChain as well. It's nice because it has the cloud-native promise. It's nice because it's declarative. I found it the most intuitive one into moving from the prompt in the browser to the application. And it has a lot of the RAG promise that LangChain is bringing. But it's just 5.7 out of 10. Pretty much the same problems like the other one, but it scores more on the code review side because they put more into this part. Spring AI, a different part of the ecosystem, they decided to just implement it themselves from scratch, being inspired by LangChain, being inspired by other people, but they are taking a step back in terms of security. They are just at the middle of the pack. I don't know about Poland, but in Romania you're just barely crossing if it would be an exam for something. Last but not least, JLlama. JLlama is a library built by the chief architect of DataStax, and it's built on Vector API, and it has a native fallback through Project Panama. And it just promises to allow you to just integrate those things in your application. And on top of that, it provides also a web application if you just want to chat with the API to see exactly how the LLM is behaving. And if you just want to play around and see how the models are behaving, these are very good options. Ollama, as you probably know, is the Docker of LLMs. You just install it, drag it, and you can take any kind of model from Hugging Face. Podman, as a solid replacement for Docker, is just trying to close the gap between the POC and the production, because they already do that in the Kubernetes space. So what they are trying to do now is to just allow you to experiment, and after that, to be able to just send it to production. JLlama, as I mentioned, is a library, but also has a small application in the browser that you can use. And last but not least, my favorite at this point is Devoxx Genie. It was built by Stefan Janssen. He is around here, so drag his sleeve and ask him questions. He will be more than happy to respond. And why I like it the most is because it allows you to go and query multiple models, be it in the cloud, be it on your local machine or your internal infrastructure. And then it will just give you multiple answers from multiple sources and allows you to see how it actually behaves. Because in my opinion, at this point of time, the only mechanism we have to defend ourselves from different behavior, malicious behavior from models, is by making sure that the use case that we have in mind, we actually test it. So just guard yourself with tests that are just providing the proper guardrails for your application. And as I mentioned, if you're facing a decision, the choice that you have is, it depends, obviously. That's the question that we have to take. And as we read, the hottest new programming language is English. It wasn't in the morning in the keynote, but trust me, this is it. But please take it with a grain of salt. It's important to understand what's actually being generated, because otherwise you'll be surprised by the outcome. And the other thing that it's important to understand is that there are mechanisms through which we can find the proper size for the model. Not everything that we build requires LLMs. We can fall back to them if needed, but just try to use mechanisms, and there are a couple of them like transfer learning or knowledge distillation that would allow you to make the model smaller and smaller, tailor-made to what you actually need, and then just use those when needed. And to just go back, and this is actually the final thoughts on this topic, is first of all, make sure that the LLM is part of your organization and it's part of the SDLC guardrails that you have. You are looking at the high standards that you actually need to make sure that you have proper code. As an example, Google had one of the smallest but the first models out there for generating code. What they saw is that they had a 40% improvement in terms of productivity, and this came from multiple sources. From their metrics, in the end, they are the ones holding the DORA metrics. But what is important to know is that Google has that monorepo, famous monorepo, where they have proper code guidelines, proper best practices implemented, and that allows you to have proper training data for your models. Then, obviously, whether we want or not to be deemed redundant, keep the human in the loop. We have to be there. We have to make sure that what we push, we are actually proud of it, because we are liable for what happens. And the cyber legislation coming states that as well. And last but not least, find the proper size for the model that you actually need. And yet again, as I mentioned, English is the new programming language, but put more salt on that. Just doubt it, ask it, critical think about it. Thank you for your time. If there are any questions, I'm here through the week. And together with a couple of friends of mine, we prepared a couple of trainings on different topics that goes there. That's the QR code, that's the link. Thank you.